Hey everyone, we are here for our July book chat. We are talking to Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray about A Pair of Aces. It's our July book chat in our summer reading series. Come on in for our Sunday book chat. I'm going to go ahead and say that it is storming, thunderstorms here, so you may hear some thunder. Hopefully the power doesn't go out. Okay, Marie is here. As always, I have pinned the link to the book. If you don't have a copy of the book, please support Victoria and Marie. But we're talking about A Pair of Aces. The dynamic duo is back again with a wonderful, wonderful book. Okay, let me see. Super excited to talk to them. Let me see. Get Marie in here. I thought I saw her. They were requests to join, and we'll get them on. Thank you guys for joining me on Sunday. I don't know if Victoria's in here yet.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am.
I'm
I
so bad at technology, so I apologize.
No worries. I'm so happy you're able to join us. This
Too,
is awesome.
I know Victoria's trying to get on too, so
Okay.
I'm not sure, like, so you just sent the invite and she clicks on that. I think that's it, right?
Yes. And once she
Okay.
gets in, so she should be able to. And if she's in this area, it's thunderstorming, so she might be having some
I know
issues.
she's texting, so I know she's got some kind of connectivity. So hopefully she'll
Okay,
be on
good.
in a second.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for wanting to talk about our book.
Of course. I'm super excited. So a couple years ago we did the personal librarian, and then I had you guys over to talk about the first ladies on Spines
Yes.
and Vines. Right. So I'm
We
super excited to
really
have you.
loved it.
Phenomenal book
Thank
again.
you.
And
Thank you
so
so much.
yeah. So everyone's kind of rolling in, and we're
I see
oh, this
them.
is hold on, it says Victoria's unable to join. Let me see where she
Hmm. Okay, because I know she's trying. She's on trying to.
okay.
So hopefully we've got her. You've me either way.
Yes. Let's see. We'll see. I don't see her in the chat area yet. Welcome everyone. This is going to be a no spoiler, so if you haven't read the book, don't
Yeah,
worry.
I'll dance around the issues. No
Yes, yes,
problem.
yes. Someone
Dance
said
around.
First Ladies is one of my all-time faves.
Thank you so much. That was
Yeah.
such a joy for us to write. We loved that one.
Yes.
Loved it. Loved it. Loved it.
I
So
might give
I
her a
don't want to
couple.
get off this to text with her because I'll lose connection with you. So
Okay, no worries. We'll see.
I'm
We'll just
gonna
give her a
actually
sec.
I can try it a different way. Let me see if I can get her this way. Let's see. Okay, I'm just gonna tell her.
I'm just trying to see if she's even in the
Yes.
live. I don't see her in here just yet.
And you sent an invite and she just accepts it, right?
She needs to actually come into hit the circle and come into the audience, and then
Okay.
I will send her the invite.
All right,
So she
perfect.
mm-hmm,
I
should do
know
that.
we've done this before.
I know we have. So we'll just look. She comes in and she joins the conversation. I see her name pop up, and then I'll just send her an invite that way. That's the
Perfect.
easiest way.
Excellent. All righty. Okay, let's see what she says. I told her what to do.
Okay, good.
So
Good, good,
hopefully
good.
she'll come on in.
So people are saying they read the book, they loved it. It's such a great read. I mean, I remember talking to you guys for First Ladies, and you were telling us what the next book was going to be about, and I knew, but I didn't know. Like this is like really great, and how it
Thank
all came together.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a crazy, true story about
yeah.
the women who brought down like the most fearsome mobster of the age. It's really
I
crazy.
and that the you guys keep finding these women to write about.
Well, they're just waiting for us. I mean,
I
I really do
know.
believe that. It's like once you have the
There she
mindset.
is.
Oh, she's on.
She's in.
Great. She figured it
Okay,
out.
let me send her a thing. Now she's in. Now
Okay.
she should have the invite to join us.
Okay. So hopefully, yes, I can see her. There
Yes.
she is.
Wow, that was a little bit of. I was so
New ones
It's okay. You're here now.
here.
nervous. Hi, Sorrel. How are you?
I'm doing well, Sora. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good
Good,
now that
good.
I'm on. I was like
Yes, good to see.
panicking.
Oh, we were gonna wait. We were gonna wait. No worries. We were gonna wait. I'm so happy to have the both of you
We're
for this
so
diverse Spines book chat. I was telling Marie that I had you on Spines and Vines for uh the First Ladies, and you came on for Personal Librarian. So we've had you all the
Yes,
way through this dynamic duo, and I'm so excited and honored that you guys said yes to
of
be our
course.
July book chat.
Are
of
you kidding
course.
me? It's our
Yes.
so thrilled and honored that you
And
picked
so,
us.
for everyone that's coming in, we're talking to Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray about a pair of aces, their third, right, collaboration.
Third collaboration. Can you believe it?
I cannot believe it. So, I want one of you just to tell the audience briefly what the book is about, no spoilers, and then we're just going to kind of dive in and have a quick conversation about. And congratulations, because it was a book club pick.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was
Yeah,
huge.
that was huge. That
Huge.
was a pretty big thing.
Yeah,
Yes.
very
And it's
shocked
funny
and
because I saw you
excited.
at Pilates, and you said, "Oh, you didn't tell me you were going to be on the Oprah podcast." And then that very next day,
I thought about that
the
because
very next day was the Reese thing. I said, "Oh, well, you had something to tell me too,
I
but you didn't."
when I said that to you at Pilates, I said, "Uh-oh, she's going to say to me tomorrow, well, you don't tell me."
Well, you can't tell that. I totally understand, but congratulations, that was amazing.
Thank
Oh,
you. So, Marie, do you want to tell
sure.
just the
I'll take
beginning
it.
of it?
I'll kick it up. Yeah, so A Pair of Aces is the story of two incredible historical women who, in our story, come together. You know, these two women are from very different worlds, one black, one white. One is the very first black female prosecutor in New York
Mhm.
City. One's the most famous madam of her day. The way these two women come together to bring the case that brings down the most fearsome mobster of the age.
And we're talking about Lucky Luciano.
Yeah.
I
Like,
know. Like
I mean,
if you're gonna go after a mobster, why not go after the top one?
Go big. Go
My
big.
goodness. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, this is your third novel together. And
Yeah.
looking back, like at the Personal Librarian, the First Ladies, how has your collaboration evolved?
Hmm.
Do you have like an unspoken rhythm? Like how
Yeah.
has it evolved?
That's a very good question.
Yeah,
Nobody's
that
asked us
is.
that. I
Yeah,
think we know
absolutely.
each other. I think with the personal librarian, we had never met. It was
Right.
our first time working together. Marie had never done a collaboration before that point of, at this size. And so everything was new. And that's a really good question, Jamise, because we've come into a rhythm. Every
Yeah.
single
Hmm.
book is different.
Different.
Hmm.
But we have found our rhythm with each one. It's almost like we don't even have to say, "What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?" The time that we spend together is just talking about the book,
Right.
figuring it out, saying, "How am I gonna do this part? What do you recommend for that part?" But yeah, we have found a rhythm.
I
Hmm.
like that. Marie?
Yeah, I would definitely say the same. And like Victoria said, each book is like a little different.
Yes.
Depending on who you're writing about, the time period you're writing about, the kind of research you're going to be able
Hmm.
to access is different, and that can inform your process. The kind of relationship the characters have can be very different.
Yeah.
That can inform your process. So, the adaptability part is really adapting to what research you have available and the nature of your characters, but the process has kind of evolved to
Yeah.
something similar but different each time, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally. I was
Yeah.
just curious about that because I'm like, you guys, I remember you saying that you hadn't met or anything for the first
Yeah.
book. And that, I
Yeah.
mean, and what a first book.
Yeah.
I, you
I,
know, I I asked because this the first book, everything was Marie's idea. It was her idea, the concept of the book, and then even reaching out to me. I didn't know anything about historical fiction, so everything about the personal librarian, the birth of it, was all Marie. And so, like for 2 years, I've stopped doing this, but I don't know if she noticed. But for 2 years, I kept saying to her, "Did you know? Like, did you know? Like, how could you? Did you know?" for
That
2 years.
book.
I said that
It's
almost
just
every
an
day.
amazing gift.
I'm
I
telling you, I
mean,
talked about it. I still recommend it to every single person I remember
oh,
when it
thank
landed. I'm like,
you.
that book is so incredible. If you haven't read The Personal Librarian, you guys need to read The Personal
Thank
Librarian for
you.
sure. So, Eunice and Polly Adler, Eunice Carter,
Yeah.
how did they first come on your radar? What made you realize that this story needed to be told?
Well, Marie is the treasure hunter in this partnership.
Oh,
Like
okay.
she's the one that goes digging. So I'm going to pass
Yeah.
that to her.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I in a way, it really started with before I got into the treasure hunting. It started with us wanting to tackle something a little different. I would say,
Mm-hmm.
Victoria. Like, so each book,
Yeah.
we want to keep it fresh and invite people into definitely to look at these really tricky historical racial issues, but also do it differently each time. And this one, we wanted to take a look at the idea of what if you had two people who, like our last book, The First Ladies, was about the really best friendship between
Yeah.
Eleanor Roosevelt and Mary McLeod Bethune, which was secret, right? Because,
Yes.
that was Jim Crow, and you weren't even supposed to have a cup of coffee with someone, let alone
Hmm.
be BFFs and start working on the civil rights movement, right?
Yes.
So, we wanted to tackle something different this time, which was two people who aren't friends, two people who are really polar opposites,
Yes.
and how do they come together to effectuate, or can they come together to effectuate great change? And I've been writing these books for a long while now, and I keep a kind of running list
Hmm.
of incredible historical women, because once you're in the rabbit hole of research, you're looking at one woman, you're going to find others, because we travel in packs. I think we all know
Yeah.
that. And I had been aware of Eunice Carter. I was a commercial litigator in New York City for over a
Hmm.
decade. I had heard of her. She was, the first Black female prosecutor in the city started in the 1930s. So I knew about her. I knew that that was a huge accomplishment in
Hmm.
and of itself. I was a lawyer. I became a lawyer at a time when there weren't as many women as there are today. Certainly not in senior positions. Very few
Yes.
women. And so I thought that was just so remarkable. Um, and I took another look at her, even though I kind of didn't want to, because I really didn't love the law. I left it for a
Yeah.
reason. And I went down it, and I really started to look at this case that was her idea, to
Hmm.
build this case based on prostitution
And
for
what a
moms.
case.
I
What a
I
know.
know.
angle.
I mean,
I
Tony
know.
didn't want to touch it. He was like, that's beneath him. And the more I looked at it, the more I'm like, knowing kind of what I know about what she would need to access from an evidentiary standpoint to build a case that would stand up
Hmm.
in court, I started to wonder, would there be someone on the inside who would be helping her on the inside, not to detract from, the incredible nature of her brilliance in coming
Right.
up with this idea, but who would there have been someone on the inside guiding her to talk to that person, wiretap these people? This is what's working, because that would have been very heavily guarded information.
Yeah.
And that's, when I came across Polly Adler, who was the most famous madam of her age. And that was kind of the genesis of it.
Of it.
I mean, and
And
so,
can I just say something, Marie?
yeah, sure.
Marie, you always say that it doesn't take away from Eunice with Polly. And I
Yeah.
agree with you. It
Yeah.
almost adds to her brilliance because she knew what
To get
she
someone.
needed
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get the case down. So it doesn't
Yeah.
take away. You're right about that. I think it
Oh,
adds to how brilliant she
yeah,
was knowing what she would need.
exactly.
I mean,
I
you have
think totally.
two people on different sides of the world, right? I mean, they're just
Right.
different lifestyles, everything.
Everything.
But
Everything.
I like that you don't paint them with the brush of someone's good, someone's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, because neither one of them are all good or all
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And so it was very interesting because one of the things Marie and I talked about was it's the black woman who is considered on the prosecutor side, and then Polly on the opposite side of the law, which is something that
Yes.
you don't see usually in
Correct.
books like this. So we talked about that part too. But both of these women to me were fierce.
Yes.
Like
Mhm.
from the
I would agree.
beginning when I met them, they
Hmm.
were fierce. So I never saw one as good or bad. And I
No.
never saw either one of them being able to accomplish their goal without the other.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I think one
I
thing that
agree.
stood out to me a lot too was the fact that you said they were fierce, but on
Mhm.
the constructs of a male dominated environment.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Talk a
mean,
little about that, because they were forging their way through Polly with her business, and then Eunice, and it's funny because when
that's
they
right.
a part in the book where you said they were going to go to lunch and they were going to go to Francis Tavern. I was like, oh my God, I've been to Francis Tavern so many times. It's like, wow.
Yeah,
Right.
but she couldn't have gone. I went
No.
and we did the
Yeah.
research on that.
Yes. And so talk
Yeah.
about, that's the thing. I mean, like that type of research, like
Yeah.
how do you like uncover all this information?
Yeah. I mean, I would say back to the question about um yeah, I mean part of the issue was finding places for them to actually connect, right?
Yes.
We think of when people, not us, but when people think about New York City, they think it's in the north. They
Mm-hmm.
think, oh, the segregation was on the books in the South,
Right.
but really New York was considered the Jim Crow of the North.
Mm-hmm.
The segregation was, it may not have been on the books in that way, but it was very much happening in practice. There were certain restaurants that were really serving white people and certain
Yeah.
restaurants that were serving black people, and generally never the twain shall meet. So
Mm-hmm.
we had to kind of look and see what places in the city would serve both of these women, where it wouldn't be like they needed to be meeting, but also not draw attention to themselves, right? So where would they not, the one or the other, not stick out like a sore thumb, because they were trying to share information about the way in which they could really make a stand,
Mm-hmm.
and really find kind of these little niches where they could make inroads into this business. And to your point about them both being fierce, I mean, it kind of goes to their commonalities. Yes, they were from very different worlds, right? Eunice was born in the U.S. She
Yeah.
came from a highly educated family. She was expected to be very highly educated. Polly came from rural Russia in a time
Mm-hmm.
of great anti-Semitism. She had to give up a scholarship that she got, a rare
Yeah.
scholarship at the age of 12, to go and work and try and support her family back home. One was black, one was white, but both were marginalized.
Yes.
Both were women on the margins. Both were very much in male-dominated worlds, right?
Yes.
In terms of who had the power.
Mm-hmm.
Both were brilliant.
Hmm.
Both were determined to make a difference and determined to do things differently. And both were very brave. So
Yes.
Yes.
and they really did, even though they did have had it for different reasons. They both had the same goal. They wanted to stop this mob organized exploitation of
Mm-hmm.
prostitution. So it just, to us, it was really a lesson in how people who really could not be more different on paper
That's right. Got
uh,
together.
can come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah.
And Jamise, what we do with the research, like how I found out about Francis Tavern,
Mm-hmm.
was I look back. There are like lots of books in New York. I love absolutely writing about New York because you can find
Yeah.
out all. And so you look back to that time period and you look back to what restaurants were there, what
Mm-hmm.
restaurants, and then that's how we find them. I remember in the First Ladies, I had never heard of a restaurant that I really wanted to use, Raoul's. Remember that, Marie?
Yes.
And
I heard you
um,
say this. Yeah.
and so that's how we just go to the time period
Uh-huh.
during our research. So we know the hotels, we know the restaurants, the kind of food that they would eat, like
Yeah.
liverwurst sandwiches,
Oh,
those kind of
yes.
things that we are not
Okay.
eating
Yes.
today.
No way.
That's all part of the research.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you keep giving us just such great pairing of women.
Mm-hmm.
And my question would be, how do you balance, it's historical fiction, but
Mm-hmm.
how do you balance, telling the story through the historical lens, but also based on the lives of real women?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you want to kick this one off, Victoria, or should I?
Yeah. Well, it does. You could do it.
Yeah, I mean, the approach, from my perspective, it's the same one I use for every book I write, right? And for every
Hmm.
book we write, and it varies again depending on the
On the
research.
story.
But
Hmm.
yeah, and what you have to work with is that really can be hugely variable. But it's almost like all that research, the original source material, the letters, if you can get them, an autobiography if you're lucky to
Hmm.
have that, and then all the secondary source material, the biographies, the books, the newspaper articles kind of fall somewhere in between. All of that stuff forms the architecture of the story. right, upon which the fiction hangs. The fiction comes into those nooks and crannies between the foundation and the pillars and the roof, where you don't know the finer points, the finer details, or a big point or a big detail, and the fiction kind of goes in there and fills it in a way that is that's in congruence with the historical research, that's in keeping with the character that you've built. I mean, these women are inspired by historical figures, but they are very much fictional
Mm-hmm.
creations, right? That we've made up based on what we've learned about them. So it's kind of how it works. It's hard to say scene by scene which much is fact and fiction versus,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
really does depend very much. Can be moment to moment how the
Right.
balance works.
That, but
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it also starts, Jamise, with Marie's treasure hunting,
Yes.
because there are hundreds of thousands of women who've been lost in history,
Yeah.
and many of them have accomplished things.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the great things that Marie does is find the women who already have the stories. You know, it's I always say we get a lot of credit for, even these women are fictional, but they're based on these
Mm-hmm.
amazing women with
Yeah.
amazing accomplishments.
Yeah.
We didn't have to make up Belda Costa Green
Right.
or what she did. We didn't have to make up Mary McLeod Bethune and Eleanor
Mm-hmm.
Roosevelt and what they accomplished. And we didn't have to make up that a woman
Yeah.
put the case together to bring down Lucky Luciano. So the stories, I think it is important to choose the stories. And then the fiction part is almost there for you. Like how much I couldn't have come up with an idea of a black female prosecutor who's going to take down the mob.
I every
I could,
time, like literally, how do you even?
you can't come up with that. So the
I know.
story's almost there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. And that I didn't know about it. I don't know
Oh,
many people that didn't know about it.
Well, one thing's for sure, it certainly wasn't heralded at the time.
it wasn't. It wasn't. And you know, when I will tell you a little inside stuff with us. That part that these women weren't heralded was important to Marie. She wanted to keep that part the same.
Hmm.
I wanted to have a little bit of a different ending where Eunice got out there and everybody was like, hurrah! I mean, it wasn't that bad, but I wanted, and we
I would
talked
like
that,
that too.
and we talked that through because Marie said, let's tell the people how they were not heralded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for us to see that, we can acknowledge and celebrate and, you know, really revel in these legacies that these women left, but it's important for us to know that they could very easily have never been known.
Yeah.
Very easily, if we weren't kind of excavating these stories, they could have just been lost forever. Because if you don't know how easily that could happen, then you won't work to prevent it from happening now,
I mean, we see it now.
all the time.
Yeah.
We see it now. And so it's like, it's grateful to authors like you who go on this, mission to
Mhm.
give us these books so we'll have it, so we'll know about these women. I mean, because you think about it, you have a black woman, you have a white woman, and they're working together. I just think like in such a male dominated area in life, like they still rose to the occasion.
That's
And
right.
so it's a message even in present day, right?
Exactly. That we can do it too.
Yeah, of
And we
course.
and we've been doing it.
Yeah.
Yes, we've been doing it. So let's talk a little bit about the world building of, you know, learning more about the mob, writing about the mob. Like, I mean, just I find it
Yeah.
completely fascinating.
Yeah. It was, I found, I mean, I think Victoria and I each had kind of our own like wow moments
Yeah.
in how pervasive it was. I think one of the hardest things from my perspective was seeing, as because what's happening in the course of this story is the way in which the mob, which really hadn't come in as a force to organize it on a broad scale before, is starting to do it here, and the way in which these women were always exploited, but the level of exploitation,
Yeah.
violence, drug use,
I had no
abuse
idea.
is increasing exponentially during this time period, and it's really, some of it's very difficult to read.
Hmm.
there are accounts, like some of the stuff we didn't really even get into, right, Victoria, like
Mhm.
some of the accounts of what happened to some of the women.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't. Yeah, and as we were studying, we didn't even include all the things that were probably done to Eunice.
Yeah.
Her grandson is Stephen L. Carter, who was the author of Emperor of Ocean Park, and
Right.
he's a Yale professor. And I watched some of his interviews
Mm-hmm.
as because he wrote a book about his grandmother, about Eunice, called Invisible, and he was like, the mob was after all of them, and
Yeah,
with a
I
real
can only.
focus on them. And sometimes I think I kind of forgot about the mob as I was writing. I just wanted to write Eunice's story, and
Yeah.
funny story. I don't remember what I had done in the scene, but when we're writing together, one of us writes like the first draft, and then from that point forward, it's every word of it together. I
Mm-hmm.
can't even remember the scene, but I'm a slower reveal. I am a slow build up
Mm-hmm.
in writing a story. And so Marie had to work with me on this one because this had to be a fast pace.
Yes.
And I had written something at one point, and Marie said, Victoria, they cannot stop and have tea. Don't you think I would like a good cup of tea? I like a good cup of tea. I just wrote a scene in my other book with the tea. But they cannot have tea here. The mob is at the door.
Yeah, and it
And
was.
I just
Well,
laughed so hard. But from that point forward, I wrote the book like the mob is at the
The
yeah.
door.
door. Yeah.
It was. I mean, every time they met, every time they exchanged information,
Mm.
every time Eunice went and tried to interview some women or gather data,
Yeah.
no, she's putting herself at risk. And every time, Polly is working with her, she's, the death
Oh,
threats were there. That, I mean,
Yeah.
it would have been very, and that there's a scene without giving too much of a spoiler um, where Polly's kind of spirited off by some mobsters and interrogated, and that comes right from her autobiography. So she was very the threat was very real. There was a huge sense of urgency
Mm-hmm.
happening for them, and they really there was a lot of sacrificing happening there.
yeah, it's funny when we're writing together. We know what the next scene is going to be. We know
Mm-hmm.
we've done a whole book together, but that scene that Marie is talking about, she wrote the first draft. My heart was beating fast reading that, and I was like, "Stop it, Victoria! You know the
What's
scene."
good?
Yeah,
But
okay.
she did such a great job because I was like, "Oh my God, Polly, Polly!"
All I mean, they really, it's hard. We could not possibly overestimate how
Mm-hmm.
risky it was and dangerous it was for them to do what they did.
I thought too, like in reading, because I listened to the audiobook as well, which is
Oh, so
great.
good.
So good. If you haven't listened to the audiobook, listen to the
Yeah,
audiobook. It's so
so
good.
good.
Pace, everything. But I thought about how, here she probably has her business, right? And then they just come and
They
infiltrate it.
just come
Oh,
in.
right.
They
But
just come in.
they just come in and take over.
Yeah,
Yeah. And
it's
she was a
worked so
woman
hard
who was
for.
like, not going to do that. Not going to happen on my watch.
Yeah,
Yeah, they just come in. And then you have Eunice, who I, I thought about like all the ways that the government or has tried to get lucky, right?
yeah,
Through different things, all these different avenues, tax evasion, all the things. And what they must have thought about, or even being jealous that she found a different way outside
Yeah.
of them, that they've tried all these other ways to
right.
bring him down.
Yeah.
And that time period, a black woman doing that.
I know. Of
Right.
that time
Isn't it
period, a black
amazing?
woman doing.
Yes.
A black woman being. Yeah. I never thought about the jealousy.
Oh,
But that's an interesting perspective. But they were busy working, trying to find out what was happening with strawberry cupcakes. And she
So
was the
crazy.
one And she was the one who was like, let me show you where the real racket is.
mm, yeah.
I admired her so much for that, not just for discovering it, but for believing in it and fighting for it. Because
Yeah.
Thomas Dewey was really opposed to the idea of building a case on mob infiltration of prostitution. One of the things I saw one of your listeners watch what was asked the question, what was the most shocking thing you learned?
Mm.
And for me, one of the most, because as a former lawyer, learning that there was actually something called women's court, where women's crimes like prostitution, because no men are involved in those crimes,
Of course not.
were taking place, right? So, he didn't want to debase himself by bringing a case on a woman's crime, which is ludicrous in and of itself, but how much she had to come to him and say, and convince him that this was going to be the winning case. And so thinking about that is just one more reason I felt like not only did she come up with this incredible, really brilliant uh, case that she could bring, explaining the way in which the mob was coming in, and like you said, taking her business, consolidating all these businesses, moving these girls around like they were pieces on a chessboard for the
Yeah.
men's pleasure and for the maximum income. But it was happening, she was learning all that. And she not only had to convince a judge and a jury that this was happening, but before she could even get there, she had to convince her own boss, right, that this was
Yes.
Yeah.
a worthy case. And to me, that was just such an enormous accomplishment for her
Yeah.
to do that too.
Yeah, and Marie, you're right, because she listened to the women.
She
You know,
did.
she listened to the women, and she knew there was a crime there. And it's just this. You're asking great questions, because I'm thinking about things I, never thought about. But like with the Epstein files, no one's listening to the women, and
Right.
she listened to the women. That's the
Yeah.
reason she stayed with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then she was smart enough also to know that she couldn't go into Dewey alone. That
Right.
part was real. That part happened.
Yeah. And I often, when I was reading, I'm thinking like, what, did you, in your research, did you discover like what made Dewey put her on his team?
That's a good question. Because a lot of people, even during that time, were saying, was she a token? Or according to him in his autobiography, she was the 10th lawyer he interviewed. And he really wanted her because she had trial experience. Like, he listed all of these things he felt that she brought to the table. And then he hired her almost right away, and then didn't use her with all the things he had said were the
Mm-hmm.
reasons why he brought her in. I really think he brought her in. He thought she was brilliant. He thought she was a great researcher. He thought she was one of the only ones with trial experience, which he says up front,
Mm-hmm.
but then never allows her to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I want people to understand that she was not a token.
Yes.
Even with the way he did finally use her, um, neither in her grandson's biography or in Dewey's autobiography is it inferred that she was just there. She was there because she was as qualified as the other men who
Yeah.
he
I mean,
chose.
I have to say, from having been a young female lawyer at huge New York City law firms, where you have, in many ways, it's still at that time, still an old
Oh,
men's club,
Yeah,
yes.
very often the only woman in the room, um, not getting plum assignments. And I mean, this was the 90s, so, 60 years after. I never felt it was assumed that I was going to get the good stuff, right? Never. If I was going to get the good stuff, I had, even though I was every bit as credentialed as everybody else, I was going to have to work that much harder to get those assignments. Getting a seat at the trial table, that was, that was definitely rarely happening. So, I could see Eunice struggling with the same things that were
Mm-hmm.
happening, and the people who were getting the opportunities out of the gate were, people who looked like the people in power,
Yeah.
and a lot of the people on Dewey's team were he had personal
yeah.
relationships with as well. We don't get into it that much in our book, but yeah, that was a big part of it. I think he knew she was bright. I think he knew she was very credentialed, but he still wasn't going to give her the good
That's what-
opportunities out of the gate, you know?
Yeah.
And, you
And
know,
so she did what women had to do. She created it herself.
She
she
did it
created the
herself.
opportunity and then she had to prove it, you know? And that, as I was, we were doing those scenes, I was like, boy, does that sound all too familiar.
Yeah, it does. It like resonates with everything that women,
Yeah.
go through or
Today.
continue to go through.
Yeah. Exactly.
Totally.
Exactly.
Um, I like too that, you often readers, even in just everyday life, you think like history is shaped by the most powerful, but then,
Mhm.
you're shining a light on overlooked women who
Mhm.
have, similar goals to show that, it doesn't take the most powerful to move the needle, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
And so
Mm.
I want to know, like, is that something that is even more stirred in you now since you've written these three books?
Mhm. I mean, for me personally, this is a mission I've been on for a while,
Yeah.
right? And I've written books about women in all from all parts of the world, all different time periods, from ancient Egypt to the
Yes.
1950s, from all different backgrounds, the law, science, politics, you name it. Um, and I feel so like what Victoria and I do is so powerful and
Yeah.
important.
It
It's
is.
such an important
Yeah.
um it's who in some ways is more marginalized. My goal has always been to shine light on the unheralded, the unknown, the unsung. Who has been more unheralded and unsung than the Black women in our
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know and so I just feel so fortunate that she wanted to join me on this journey. It's really been transformative.
I love the collaboration. I just, from the very beginning, and then when you announced the second book, I just could not, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow.
And it's interesting you say that because I always want people to understand, though, this is a 50-50 partnership. We work equally as hard.
Yeah.
This was Marie's idea, not only just because she wanted to write the book about a Black woman in the
Mhm.
personal librarian.
Yeah.
And she wasn't being politically correct or anything. She was saying, what is the best thing for that woman?
Right.
And then and I'm talking about Marie like she's not here, sitting right.
Go for
But
it.
and then even with this is how I feel about her, how important this is. Because then even with the next books, because I think when we first started The Personal Librarian, we thought this was going to be a nice book and we'll be
Yeah.
friends. But as we went out, we saw how people were reacting to us, and we were like, we're not interesting. Talk about Belle. And people wanted to
Oh
talk
yeah.
about us. And we were like,
Right.
Yeah.
no, Belle. And they were like, no, you two. And then we sat down and said, wow, this is a way that we could have conversations in black and white,
Yeah.
Mhm.
where we could have conversations about race, and do it in the safe place of fiction. And
Mm-hmm.
Marie always says, especially historical fiction, because
Fiction.
they're
Yes.
removed from it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I will never underestimate the gift of what Marie has given to all of us.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because not only has Marie taken marginalized women from history, but one of our sorors, Jamise, said to Marie,
Mm.
you took a marginalized author
Mm.
and used your privilege to help
Yeah.
her, and then Black historical fiction became a thing suddenly.
Yeah.
Mm.
So Marie has
Yeah.
done it in the history and
Oh,
we were doing a Delta meeting, and one of the
it was so
Sarah said, "Let me explain what Marie has done in case no
Yes.
oh.
one else understands it."
I mean, it's a beautiful thing. I love the collaboration, the sisterhood. I just think it's a
Mhm.
beautiful thing. And then it's sparking these conversations.
Yes.
You think about a book club like a Reese Witherspoon's book club, predominantly a white book club and
Right.
across the board, but you're introducing these stories to people that, probably would not read about a Eunice,
Yeah.
right?
Right. That's right.
Yeah. And so I think that it's opening the conversation across, different cultures, different backgrounds. I do want to know,
Yeah.
let's talk about, because I want to go back to Polly for a second, because
Yeah.
we know, presenting Eunice, she's a Black woman, but Polly also, she was a Jewish woman,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
and so you're like during that time frame, she was, she had all these things going against her as well, and how she was
Yeah,
treated from that lens.
yeah, she
Yeah.
was. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, going back to those parallels, and the women do have a conversation about like who's got it
Who
worse,
got it
Yes.
worse?
between us, and that's a conversation we hear today too,
Yeah.
right? And I think the important thing for Victoria and I was it was important for them to have that conversation, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, and for there to be an acknowledgement and respect on each of the characters' side to say, you have it bad, but I have it bad too. And
Yeah.
is there really a good place for a woman in our
Yeah.
society? Is this where are we
Sad
gonna
to say, but
where's
yes.
where's it gonna land? Where are we sitting pretty here? And because I think, sometimes we can get so mired in our perspective,
Yes.
our lens, our harm, our burdens, and forget that other people have them too. And then
Mm-hmm.
in acknowledging that and making other people feel seen and understood, that allows us to have greater empathy,
Mm.
commonality, bring us
Yes.
together. Because really, in most ways, we're so much more alike than different. And
Yes.
most
100%.
of us, not all of us, most of us want goodness in the world, want
Yeah.
similar things for ourselves and for our communities. And sometimes we can get stuck in those positions
Yeah.
and not see that. And so to have these two women like see that in each other, would you say that's a good
Yeah, that's
example of
so
that
true.
statement?
Exactly. And Jamise, when those two women came together, especially have that conversation, because first Marie and I had to figure out what they would say,
Yeah,
so we had
Yeah.
to have that conversation. Those are the kinds of things that lend itself to conversations outside of the book.
yeah,
Yes.
One of the things that we like to encourage is, I always say, people say the most segregated hour of the week is church. No, it's book club
they're
meeting.
pretty segregated.
It is Friday night book club
Yeah,
meetings. And so we have tried to encourage Black book clubs and white book clubs.
To come
And
together.
we have found some who've met once a
Yeah.
year. Even if it's once a year, they get together to
That's a
discuss.
great idea.
Isn't
yeah,
that a great idea?
Yeah.
And when we're writing these books, and they're using our books because it's a safe place to ask the question.
Yeah. That's a great idea. It
Yeah.
really is. So what has it's a two-part question. What about the characters have stayed with you? And then what do you want readers to take away from the story?
Ooh.
that's such good questions and
Yeah.
such hard ones
I
for
know.
you.
So
Challenging.
I'll answer. What stayed with me was, this book was difficult to write because of our friendship. So
Hmm.
when we wrote Mary McLeod Bethune and Eleanor Roosevelt, our editor said to us, make sure you show their friendship. We're like, that's easy.
Right.
We'll just do one. So Marie used to tell people that book was semi-autobiographical because the
It's like you got.
conversations were us. I didn't know how to write a book about somebody I had to work closely with, and I didn't like them very much.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean that was a challenge with this book, right?
Yeah.
Is how do you bring two women who, first of all, are really different, but also
Yes. Very.
sometimes are really not enjoying one another. They're not
Hmm.
happy with what the other's doing, how they're
Yeah,
approaching
because the
it.
other one of them is going to affect the business of the other one,
Heck yeah, yeah. I mean,
her
they're literally
livelihood.
I mean, in this one area, they have a united goal, right? Bring
It's
down
only this
wickedness
one
beyond us.
The
little
person,
area.
But
right?
otherwise, their goals
Yes.
are different. But again, that was important, right? For us to say, okay, maybe you're going to disagree. You two people in our day, you're going to disagree on all these other things, but maybe there's one thing, like you want to create a community garden. Maybe that's the only thing you can agree on. Work on that,
Work on
right?
it together. That's
And
what
then
we
maybe
want people to take away.
all right, maybe then you like each other. You realize that we're not so different and there's other commonalities, right? It's
Right.
just, you hope it has a domino effect. And now I can't even remember your question. So I'm
No, the
sorry.
question, actually, the question is the same thing. Like,
It's the same.
what did we
Okay.
learn? What did
Oh,
we learn?
yeah.
What did we take
Yeah.
away? And
Yeah.
so
Oh, I
I was
forgot. I
saying,
was saying,
watching what I learned writing it, because it wasn't easy and
yeah.
natural.
Mm-hmm.
was two people from very opposite worlds
Yeah.
could work together
They
for a
can.
common goal.
Which is
And
what you want readers to take away.
that's
That's
what
it.
we
Yeah.
want people
We
Yeah.
to
do.
take away.
Yeah.
Because from the beginning, this is the first time, Marie said earlier, every book is different.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time when we were really thinking about a theme. Like
Yes.
and very seldom do I even approach a book with a theme or
Mm-hmm.
something, because I don't think that way when writing. I just want to write the story. But this was so important when we came up with this idea two
Mm-hmm.
years ago, that we wanted to show people you don't have to be friends to be
Yeah.
allies.
Right.
What a
And
great
that
theme.
was in our head
Mm-hmm.
before we even started writing the book. Because that
Yeah.
was the only way I could figure out, how are these two people going to get together? You don't have to be friends to be allies. And here's the thing, it is so important. It wasn't important then for them.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Very.
in this climate of
Yeah.
America today,
It's even more important.
and I say this all the time, the 92% need to hear this message. You don't have to be friends to be allies,
Yeah.
because you
Don't.
have to come together. We're going to have to come together for a common goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Totally. One last question before I let you guys go. Get back to your day. Our rainy day, Victoria here.
It's
Um,
raining. It was pouring a
yes, I
minute
know.
ago.
What's next? Because I can't imagine this ever ending.
You're so
I'm
cute.
not letting Marie go anywhere.
Hey.
Can't ever imagine this ending.
No.
I
We
mean,
do
what
have
you
a
can
fourth.
share, what you can't
That's
share.
yeah. I mean, we do have what we can share is that we're about to start working on our next one,
Oh my
right?
gosh, I can't believe it.
I
Yeah,
don't know. We can't really say much more
we
than
can't
that.
say more than
Okay,
that.
that's
But we
fine.
do have other books coming
Yes,
before
we
then.
do. We do.
So,
So,
so similar to last time after the First Ladies, I think Marie had a book coming out, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then Victoria, you had Harlem Rhapsody coming
yeah,
out. So
yeah.
you
So
have,
we have
I mean,
another.
you guys are on the grind.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's so interesting when people say that, because I say, you go to work every day.
I
So
know, I
I
know.
go to work every day. Like, I can't,
Yeah.
I have developed this wonderful relationship with food and shelter.
Yeah.
And so I have to work in
Yeah.
order
Yeah.
to keep the relationship going.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
I
So
mean,
but
I
I'll
important.
tell
admire
you,
it. I mean, I wrote a book I thought was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life,
yeah,
aside from raising kids. And so
Oh, kids are the hardest for
I
sure. They're
tell
the
me
hardest.
about it.
and it
And
And
the
doesn't even
so
matter how
best.
old
The
they get. It
best.
doesn't even matter how old
no,
they
it
get.
never ends. It
Oh,
never
never.
ends.
Never.
So anybody out there that
Never.
has young kids, it never ends.
Yeah. It does get different.
It gets
Yes.
different. They have
Changes.
adult problems though.
Yes.
Yes.
They
It
have
never.
adult problems but want your adult bank account to help them out. And so that's why it never ends.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Exactly. But so I'll start with mine, because mine I'm writing as we speak.
Okay.
And so my next solo project is called The Sisters of Sag Harbor.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And yeah, and so it's about the two women who founded, because
Yeah.
that's what it says on that big rock, founded the Black Beach of Sag Harbor. And Sag Harbor only has one beach, and it's in that black section. And it was the beach that became the impetus for them to even go after that. So I'm very excited
Cool.
about that. I do want to say, what it's funny to me is that it's a solo book, and so it's not a collaboration. But ask Marie how much work she has to do on my books.
She's probably up.
I mean, it's such a good story, and
I'm so excited. I can't
I'm
wait.
really excited for
With
it.
Harlem
There's so
Rhapsody,
much rip.
with Harlem Rhapsody, Marie had never done a line edit, and I had three people: my agent, Marie, and my editor. Hers was the best line edit I ever had. And
Oh,
I'm not kidding. I mean, she would have me in the diner with flow charts and arrows on
I
everything.
can't help myself.
And this book, the
That
same
lawyer
thing.
self.
So it's solo, but she still is my
that's
key
awesome.
Of course.
advisor.
That's
Yeah, of
awesome.
course.
And tell yours, Marie, because I'm so excited
Oh,
about
I'm
this
really
one. Like,
excited.
I
Yeah.
love Daughter of Egypt, but I have a feeling this is going to be my favorite, only because
Excited.
this is my industry, you
I was
know?
gonna say
Oh,
this.
okay. So
Yeah.
what's next?
So in March, this upcoming March, I have The Witch of Wall Street coming out. It's the story of Hetty Green, who became largely self-made, the richest tycoon of the Gilded Age. She was definitely the richest woman. She probably was richer than
It's the
Carnegie,
Gilded Age is
Morgan,
like I'm
all
in.
those guys. And she was basically the reason we don't know anything about her is because as she became more powerful and more successful, of course, that became threatening to the men.
Of
And they
course.
owned a lot of the newspapers. And so there was a concerted effort to have her described as and dubbed the Witch of Wall Street. So, instead of being this powerful force for good, which is really what she was, um, she became in their eyes and in the public eyes like this miserly shrew, and so
Oh,
she was really kind of written out of history in a very different way.
Isn't that
oh wow.
great?
That
Doesn't
is
I can
great. I
see your
love the Gilded
face?
Age era, so I'm like
It's
excited.
But
crazy.
the Witch
Yeah,
of Wall
with
Street,
the
she
The
became like
Witch
the
of Wall.
richest
yeah.
woman. I'm
And it's
so
amazing how
Oh,
men can put a labels on women and it totally changes the
right,
trajectory of your entire life.
and
right.
isn't that happening today
Yeah,
too?
it's
It's
just like
so
one word,
One
yeah,
like
word.
influencing the media or influence the news to like
Yeah,
change
one
everything.
word.
right.
But
But we
she
That
used
continue
lens,
it.
to rise out of it.
right?
She used it to her advantage. So
She
Yeah.
did in the end, and she also
this,
grew not to care. So I love
Yeah.
that.
I'm so excited for what's next for both of you all and the collaboration.
Thank
It's
you.
always great to talk to you. Forever supporting. Can't
Thank
wait.
you.
oh, thank
Oh,
And
it was
you.
such a delight. What a great conversation. Thanks so
Yeah,
much
this
for
was
having us.
great. And I'm sorry, one of these days I'm going to get on with you and it's going to work. Because remember,
no,
1 year I didn't have any volume.
yeah.
Oh,
One of these,
That's right, because we're talking women empowerment. They're trying to not let us do our thing, so it's
that's what
okay.
it is.
yes.
That's what it is. Never our fault. It's
No.
Never.
Oh, no.
never. Because
Never.
Marie and I, we like whenever we see each other together on one of these, we're so happy
That is
because
a victory.
the
Very
two of
much.
us together, the two of us together can never get on.
I love it. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to the
Thank
audience for
you.
joining us today on your Sunday. And I'll post it up shortly. But thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for having
everyone.
us.
Bye, you guys.
Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.